This is a disaster. I am actually having like a little bit of an existential crisis right now, even worse than the last yarn. And I didn't know that was possible. Hello and welcome to the Faded Wildflower Crochet. My name is Rachel, and today is another episode of Will It Ami, which is a series on my channel where we test out different types of yarn and see if they work for Amigurumi. And along the way, you can watch me make a cute plushie. Well, I sure hope it's cute today because today we are trying out Big Twist t-shirt yarn. And if you're wondering why I don't sound very excited, you obviously haven't seen this video. I've only ever tried out one type of t-shirt yarn in my life, and I hated it. It was probably the worst yarn that I've tried for this channel so far. But I asked in my community tab what kind of yarn you wanted to see me try next, and somebody mentioned Big Twist t-shirt yarn, and so here I am. That's literally all you have to do to get me to try a yarn is say, hey, Rachel, I want you to try this yarn, and I'll do it. I might not be happy about it, but I'll do it. The pattern that we are going to be working from today is this cute little baby dinosaur, which is my own design. You can find this pattern on my Etsy shop as well as my Ko-fi. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at this yarn. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear Lily panting. It's another scorcher out there today. And so, we're doing our best out here with air conditioner noise and panting. I'm sorry if you can hear that, but we're trying to survive the summer over here, okay? Okay, here is a closer look at this yarn. This is, like I said, the Big Twist t-shirt, which is a relatively new yarn, I believe. I'm not sure exactly when this came out, but it was the first time I had seen it at my local Joann. And the normal price for this is $12.99. Of course, Joann is always running sales. I'm not sure exactly how much I paid for this because I got it on sale and then I also used coupons, and so it wasn't too expensive. But this is 100% recycled polyester, 131 yards. Oh, and it already has dog hair on it. Welcome to my house, yarn. You're gonna get covered in dog hair if you come here. Anyway, so this is a super bulky weight. It says to use a 9mm crochet hook. I'm totally unsure what we will use. I kind of like that it has this indication of how many skeins of yarn you would need for each of these different projects. That's kind of interesting. And this color right here is called Skipping Stones, which that's a cute name. This one's called Red Lipstick. I'm not sure why I find that funny. It's not just red. It's not just lipstick. It is red lipstick. Okay. Before we get started, I thought I would show just a close-up of what this yarn looks like. There you can see that it's basically is just like a cut-up t-shirt. So it does kind of roll into itself like this when you're working from it, but it can fold out to be, let's see here, about that big, and it is a little bit stretchy. I will say so far I'm noticing it's not quite as stretchy as the Lion Brand Lazy Days, whatever that one was called. That one was really, really stretchy, whereas this one is like, can you see there? It's like this way it doesn't really stretch hardly at all. It does stretch this way, if that makes sense. And I did not like the stretchiness of that yarn, particularly for Amigurumi. Again, I don't know if that yarn would have been better for something else. I'm sure it would have been, but I actually donated that yarn, you guys. I never do that. I keep almost all the yarn that I ever buy just on my shelf back here, and I'm like, I'll find a use for it. I just liked that yarn so much that I was like, no, I'm just donating the rest of this. That definitely is a sign that I do not like a yarn. So like I said, this one is not as stretchy. And it is soft, but not even as soft as the other one either. It literally does just feel like a t-shirt. I mean, I know that's what it says, but it feels like you cut up a t-shirt and made yarn out of it. I'm sure that is a totally unhelpful explanation here, but that is literally what it feels like. Now, it is polyester and not cotton, so it doesn't have quite that breathable texture that a cotton yarn would have. So that is something to keep in mind, but it doesn't really feel to the touch any different than like a cotton t-shirt. So we'll see what it's like when we work with it. But I am going to be making my dinosaur's body in this beautiful turquoisey color. And then we will use the red lipstick for the spike. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, guys, so I'm basically running into the exact same thing as last time where I feel like I need to go up a hook size because it's so stiff and hard to get into the stitches if I use a smaller crochet hook. But going to the bigger crochet hook it makes it have gaps. Can you see that? There's definitely a lot of gaps. I feel like it looks better on camera than it does in person, but I feel like no matter which hook I use, it is very, very stiff. It's even stiffer than the last t-shirt yarn that I tried. Like this isn't, can you see that there's like no bend to this at all? Like it's very, very stiff. And I wondered if maybe the lack of stretch would make it easier to work with, but it seems to actually be making it harder to work with. And I've tried 4 different hook sizes already. I think I am going to end up going down to a 6mm, even though it feels really tight, but it's going to produce less gaps in my work. So I don't know. My first impressions are that I'm not loving it. I don't know how you guys work with t-shirt yarn. I see people work with t-shirt yarn, like with the Woobles kits and stuff. Does it feel this stiff or is it a lot softer, like and nicer to work with? I don't know. I have not tried that type of yarn. I've thought about reviewing not the kit because I feel like a lot of people have reviewed the kits, but I thought about reviewing just the yarn. Would that be something you guys are interested in? I don't know. But I may not be the right person to be doing this because I am not that big of a fan of t-shirt yarn, at least so far in the 2 that I've tried. So anyways, I'm just going to try to muddle through here, you guys, but I'll check in with you guys in a little bit. Update time. I hate it. As you can see, there are so many gaps. It looks better on camera than it does in person, but there are so many gaps in this. It's also so stiff. Can you see, like, just from like trying to do this, like there's just like barely any flexibility to it at all. It's extremely stiff. And that means it's hard to work with on my hands. And I also don't really like these gaps. So I love you guys, but not enough to break my hands over. So there's absolutely no way I'm going to be making a plushie like this size. Not going to happen. So I do think I am going to just make something small because I want to have something to show for this. I want to have a plushie at the end of this, but I think I'm just going to make like a tiny little just a tiny little guy. I think I'm just going to continue on this and just make like a little bluebird. I think for the rest of the features, the face and the feet and stuff, I am going to just be using some of my own yarn, just like some acrylic yarn that I have in my stash because I just can't, you guys. It is really difficult to work with. I'm literally sweating. I'm not even kidding. So that's where we're at so far. I've never had to completely change which design I was working on. So I do think that this is even worse than the last yarn. And I didn't know that was possible. So I'm going to go sit on my couch and be comfy. And we're going to come up with something at the end of this, you guys. But it might not be pretty. Might not be pretty at all. Okay, so I've run into yet another problem, you guys. I cannot get these safety eyes to clip no matter what I do. I know that sometimes if you turn the washer like the other way, that was the only way that I was able to get the eyes on my mushroom guy to fit back when I did that video. But I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to like put them in upside down. It's still not clipping. This stuff is so thick. Let me see if you can see. Can you see how that's like barely enough room to fit the safety eyes? And I did try some bigger ones. I have like these 18mm ones, and even they won't clip. So I guess I'm just going to leave the safety eyes off for now and just embroider some eyes on at the end. I don't know. This is a disaster. I really did not think that this was going to go as badly as it is going, but here we are, you guys. I am actually having like a little bit of an existential crisis right now because I'm like, should I even post this video? Like, are you guys even going to want to watch this? But somebody said that they were thinking about buying it, and I don't want anyone else to have to go through this. And I actually think it looks so much nicer on camera than it does. But like, see, when I turn it just a little bit, you can see the gaps. Yeah, there's a big gap right there. Not great. I feel like if I like really, really pushed, I could maybe get it in there, but that sounds inappropriate. I don't know. I'm sorry about that. But I do feel like I could maybe get it in there if I had the right tool. I know I've seen those tools going around that pinch your safety eye for you, but I just don't have anything like that, and I'm not going to keep struggling with this. So I am just going to go ahead and finish the crocheting, stuff it, and then just embroider some eyes, I guess. That's all I can do. So let's just keep going. I'm ready to have this over with already, but we still have quite a bit to do. So let's keep going. Is done, and I'm going to be annoying and make you wait for the reveal to see him, even though he's really not much to look at, to be honest. I thought that I would try and use this yarn for kind of more of its intended purposes and whip up like a little basket really quick. I'm just going to use a 9mm crochet hook and do just like some double crochets, just do a quick little thing just to see if I actually do like the yarn for more of its intended purposes. I've said this in several videos, but I'm really wanting to do a video where I do a lot more home decor and kind of spruce up this room. And I want to see if this is even worth it to maybe use this for some home decor for that video. So I thought I would just do like a quick little experiment and see how I feel about it for, you know, a looser stitch double crochet sort of moment and make like a little tiny basket. We'll see. So I'm going to go do that really quick. Okay, here it is. It's a little bit wonky. I just whipped this up really quick. I wasn't even really paying attention too much to my stitch count, but I have to say, even from just this quick little basket, that it is so much easier to do double crochets, like loose tension with this yarn than it is to try to keep a tight tension like you need to for amigurumi. So I'm definitely going to keep this yarn and make some more baskets or other types of home decor with this, because holy cow, is that so much easier. Is it still my favorite yarn in the whole wide world? No. And we'll talk about that in a minute in my final thoughts. But definitely, if you're going to purchase this yarn, be prepared to use it for some sort of home decor, something where you're doing loose stitches. I could definitely also see like a nice tote bag or something like that, where you're making like a market bag to take to a farmer's market or something like that. I could see that being a lot better for this type of yarn. I really just kind of wanted to know firsthand. A lot of times I make these videos and I'm like, I bet this would be better for A, B, and C, but I don't actually try it. So I thought I would just try it for this video, and my assumption was correct. It is much, much easier for loose stitches. So I am going to keep this in my stash to make some more baskets and things like that out of it. But let's go ahead and get into the reveal of my little bluebird and talk about my final thoughts for this yarn for amigurumi. Okay, here he is. I know that he has not much to look at, but I'm honestly just happy to be holding something in my hand. It's better than nothing. I would normally do a tail and like little feet and stuff, but I was just so over it that I just made this simple little, it looks kind of more like a penguin with a red belly instead of a bluebird, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm just glad to have something in my hand to be showing you guys. So rude. Anyways, so let's go ahead and talk some pros and cons for this yarn. So the first pro is that This yarn is a t-shirt yarn, and because of that fact, it doesn't split. I know that, like I said, the Woobles kits, have I been saying wobbles? I always forget if it's wobbles or woobles. I think it's woobles, right? But those kits come with some sort of variation of a t-shirt yarn. And I think the reason for that is because that type of yarn, just by the nature of what it is, it doesn't split. And so you don't have to even think about that. So I guess that is a pro. I mean, I'm trying to be generous here. The other pro I have to say is that this yarn does come in a lot of colors and some really beautiful colors, especially for a brand new yarn that they just came out with. I know that sometimes yarn lines will launch and only have like 4 or 5 colors. This one, I believe, has 14, and they are really beautiful colors. I was having a hard time choosing which colors I wanted whenever I was picking up this yarn at my local Joann. I did end up picking up these 2 colors just because I like those colors for home decor, and I know that I'm going to be using this yarn in the future for home decor instead of for amigurumi, so that's why I picked these colors. But there are some really nice colors to choose from, so I would definitely say that's a pro. So the cons for this, as you can imagine, are basically everything else. So the first con for me is that this yarn is so stiff. It is much more stiff than the last t-shirt yarn that I chose. That one was much more stretchy and more malleable than this one. I still didn't like it, but I actually think I like this one even less for mostly that reason. Because it is so stiff, trying to keep a really tight tension was hurting my hands. I know I hear a lot of people say that about the Bernat blanket, which I feel that way as well. But this is even worse than that because it is like hard. Like if you threw this at somebody, it would hurt. It is so solid, which again makes it nice for something that I'm planning on using it for, like a basket. But for amigurumi, I just don't think that's the right texture. Another con for me is that it's really hard to get your tension tight and even. And I don't know if that's just the nature of t-shirt yarn in general, because I had the same problem with the last t-shirt yarn that I chose, but I just had a really hard time getting the yarn to actually be super tight enough to where you can't see any gaps in the work. And I think I showed you a close-up of one part where when I was sewing on the wing, you could see the stuffing coming out of the stitches, and I just hate that. I really like to have nice, tight, even stitches. I say that all the time, but that's really important to me with amigurumi. I think it looks nicer, but it's also going to be more secure so that your stuffing is not coming out whenever you're playing with it, or if you give this to a child or something like that, the stuffing's going to come out if they play with it for more than 2 seconds, and that's just not good. Like I said, I don't know if it's this yarn in particular or just t-shirt yarn in general, or if it's just not for me. Maybe we're just not a good match. I don't know, but I just have the hardest time keeping my tension right with t-shirt yarn. So that's definitely a con in my book. So another con for me is that this yarn in particular was really hard to sew with. I had an even harder time sewing with this one than I did with the other t-shirt yarn, because you really have to like get underneath the stitches. You can't go through the stitches because they're made of that t-shirt material. And when you try to do it, it sort of snags. And that just makes sewing a little bit harder. You have to be really careful where you're sewing on. Like my sewing does not look nearly as neat as when I do it with something like an acrylic yarn, because acrylic, again, is more malleable. You have several strands with the acrylic yarn, so you can kind of sew in between all of those places. And you guys know that I like sewing with amigurumi, and I like having that flexibility of being able to sew something on wherever I want. But with t-shirt yarn, it is so much harder to be able to sew the pieces on just wherever you want. You really have to make sure you get under the stitches, and because they're so thick, it really makes it hard to do a nice, neat, even job, at least in my opinion. Now, another con, which this kind of goes back to the fact that this is so thick, is that it was so impossible for me to get the safety eyes on. Maybe I do need to invest in one of those tools that clips the safety eyes for you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will show a picture on the screen of this new tool that's available that can clip safety eyes. And I don't remember which video it was that I first saw this in. I will try to link it below if I remember where I saw it, but maybe I need to invest in one of those, because I do have a hard time getting safety eyes to clip when it comes to really thick yarn. And like I said, I tried different sizes and it just was not happening. So I actually think the little embroidered eyes are cute, but again, it was kind of hard to embroider on top of the t-shirt yarn just because it's just a little bit harder to sew on, but I do think it looks kind of cute. So it worked out okay, but it would be really nice to be able to use safety eyes. And I just don't think that it's an easy possibility, especially if you have hand pain or arthritis or something like that. You're going to have a really hard time trying to clip safety eyes on because this yarn is just so darn thick. So will Big Twist t-shirt yarn Ami? I'm gonna have to say no. I just don't think that it's worth it. Most of the yarns that I've tried so far for this channel, I can kind of say, it's your personal preference if you want to try it, but I cannot recommend this for amigurumi, especially if you have hand pain, because really getting your tension right is so difficult. Like I said, you have the issues with the safety eyes, all of the things that I've mentioned so far. I cannot, with a good conscience, recommend this for amigurumi. However, from the little experience I've had so far, using it with a looser stitch, I did like it, and I will keep it and use this yarn to make some home decor in the future. So again, I keep hyping up this video that I'm going to do of making home decor, but be sure to stay tuned for that because I am really excited. I'm gathering all of my patterns and supplies and stuff like that for it. So I do feel like I'm going to keep this yarn for that. And so it wasn't a complete waste of money, but will it Ami? No, I don't think so. I would not waste your money if you were planning on making this for amigurumi. So you'll have to let me know what you thought about today's video. Have you ever tried this yarn? I know it's pretty new, and so I'm hoping this review maybe prevented you from buying it if you were planning on making amigurumi with it. And if you have successfully made amigurumi with this yarn, let me know your secret. Let me know your secrets for working with t-shirt yarn just in general, because I seem to have a really hard time with it. I don't know why, but I am just not having the best luck in my life with t-shirt yarn. So if you have any tips for working with it, and especially tips for getting your tension right, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I tried different hook sizes. I tried holding my yarn differently. I tried different tension, and nothing really seemed to work. So if you have some tips, be sure to leave them in the comments. If you did like today's video, be sure to hit the like button. You can subscribe, stick around, let me know what other kind of videos you want to see next. You can follow me on Instagram. It's The Faded Wildflower. You can check out my patterns and plushies on Etsy. And you can also check out my patterns on Ko-fi, as well as a little tip jar if you appreciate my content. And thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time.